ჩემი ხმა ისმის? საუბრობ თანასწორობაზე, მრავალფეროვნებაზე, ჩემს უფლებებზე, გამოცდილებებსა და რეალობაზე, რომელშიც ცხოვრობთ.
My name is Alexei Ovchinnikov. I'm environmental climate activist, journalist and researcher from Belarus. Right now I live in exile. I left the country in 2021. I lived in Ukraine. Right now I live in Georgia. And my sphere of interest are grassroots initiatives and the growth initiatives in post-Soviet countries. I'm also very interested in organization of decentralized communities. Also my main work right now is analyzing of environmental consequences of Russian full-scale invasion in Ukraine. So how it influence on environmental in the region, and also how it will influence on the global climate policy. Yeah. So in this podcast I will talk about the experience of environmental organizations in Belarus, which we were liquidating in 2021, how they survived, how they tried to continue their work. Also I would like to talk about environmental issues in Georgia, and I think that for me it will be interesting to talk a little bit about climate policy situation with climate policy right now in the world, because it's very important. Not many people think about it, how the war in Ukraine and polarization in the world influence it on climate policy, global climate policy. So in Belarus I was involved in environmental and climate action movement for a long time, and in 2020 I became an environmental journalist. I started to write more about environmental issues in the country, so it was my decision. And also I started more involved in environmental movement, and I participated in different initiatives, in different protests and different marches. But in 2020, in August 2020, after the falsification of elections in Belarus, civil protests started. I also, as different activists, were involved in it, and we tried to change political situation in the country peaceful, because we realized that elections were really falsified. So Lukashenko, who's in rule for 30 years right now, so he received like 80%, but it wasn't true for sure, and a lot of people in the country realized it, and there were big protests in every city. I think that there were really huge, biggest protests in the country. Yeah, and but they were peaceful, and NGOs also were involved in it. And in 2021, so the level of protest was very decreased. So, and after that, I think repressions against NGOs and environmental activists started. In 2021, all environmental NGOs were liquidated in the country, even such big as Eco Home, and for example, Bird Watching Association. It's a very, very important for natural conservation organization in Belarus. And some of my colleagues and friends were arrested. In September 2021, I realized that if I will stay in the country, probably I will be arrested, or I should stop my work and go in the forest and stay there, or I can leave the country and go to another one and continue my work, continue to talk about environmental issues in the country, but from other country. And I moved to Ukraine because I have a lot of friends in Ukraine, and I still think that it's like my second motherland. And I stayed in Ukraine till January 2021, and then I decided to visit my friend who lived at the time in Batumi. Just come here for a couple of months. I didn't believe that the full-scale invasion will be started, and I came to Georgia, and then I didn't have possibility to come back to Ukraine. And I stayed in Georgia, and right now I'm here for more than 2 years. So, and for me it's very important, because a lot of my colleagues, they right now live in Lithuania or in Poland, but I think that in Georgia, in Ukraine, and in Belarus we have a lot of similarity. We all are post-Soviet countries, and we also all have problems and struggling with regimes. I talk right now about Russian regime and Belarusian regime. So, and for me it was very important to support activists in the countries of this region. Well, I would like to say that NGOs played a very big role in Belarus. I think it's very important to mention, because For example, from the position of nature conservation, I don't know any project in the southern part of Belarus, and they play a really great role. And for example, Aarhus Convention was signed by Belarus, but main role in this signature played EcoHome. It's a very big organization, environmental organization. Right now they're declared as extremists in the country, so any cooperation with this organization can influence negative on any people. So yeah, but they're trying to continue their work. And in 2020, I think all NGOs supported protests because they were really civil protests and they were really peaceful, and also people tried to demonstrate their values of unity, of trust, and of support for each other. And all NGOs, I think, supported protests, and also it was like the way how the government realized that they should fight against NGOs and close NGOs. And the process of liquidation, I think, started in summer 2021. I heard about a similar law, but I'm not sure that it was really law. I know that in beginning of 21, NGOs had to write and talk more about funds and about structure, so they received they had to make much more paperwork, and it's also, I think, influenced negatively on the organizations because some funds, they didn't want to work in this situation because it was strange why in this time, so they had to do so many things just to share information. And but I think the main point was just to press on NGOs and just to close them. So a lot of them were liquidated in 2021. So some of them were registered in other countries. I know a lot of NGOs were registered in Georgia, for example, because it was like easy way just to come to Georgia and to register organizations. Some of them were registered in Poland and Lithuania, and process there is more complicated, I think, as I know. And some of them stayed in the country, and they also re-registered. I don't want to blame them and say that they're collaboratives with the government. Everybody makes their own decisions, but main organizations, they were liquidated, and right now they work in exile. And my organizations, Green Network and EcoHome, right now we work in exile. Yeah, I think the protests were really huge and big. I didn't see such protests. We had protests every 5 years and during the elections because Lukashenko came to the rule, I think, in 1994, if I'm not mistaken. So 30 years, of regime. Just you can imagine how it's. And every 5 years people go there, but it's mostly where, I think in 1996 we had also a big protest, but after that it was just only people from opposition, I think, protested on the street. But in 2020, because it was a very strange situation in the country, officially, for example, we didn't have any COVID measures, so people had to go to the work, and they didn't receive enough information how COVID influenced on people, on society, how many people are sick, how many people died, and also it was, I think, the beginning where people realized that something going wrong with government. And in summer, before the elections, all candidates from opposition were arrested. And so it looked like there is only one Lukashenko, and some of his satellites can be elected. But at the same time, they made probably a mistake because there is a wife of our opposite candidate, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. She also was registered as a candidate for the presidential election, and they said it's okay. They didn't think that it will really influence the political situation, and a lot of people decided just to vote for Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. It was like a vote against Lukashenko. And I think many people really in the country wanted to do it, and in the time of elections they just wanted to make it more clear and just to receive all these protocols from election points, and they realized that when it looked like they couldn't receive protocols, and so police also tried to move people out of the election point. So they decided to go for protest, and first 2 days of protest were really brutal. And on the third day, it looked like protest ended in the country, but I think on fourth and fifth day, there was a women march actually in Minsk, and it was like a symbol that protest will continue. A lot of women in white dresses came to the street, and after that, many people decided that they should also go on the street and continue their protest. Yeah, and NGOs were involved in it, of course, and activists also were involved, because for us it was very important just to support people, because that's what we're doing all the time. And protests continued, I think, till January or February 2021. There were a lot of arrests. During every protest, I think more than 200-300 people were arrested, something like that. Yeah. And right now we have 2,000 official political prisoners, and among them, for example, is Alexei Ovchinnikov. He's head of human rights organization Vietnam, and also in last year, or maybe in this year, he received Nobel Prize for Peace. Yeah, but right now he's in prison, so you can just see how brutal, how repressed is the situation in the country right now by regime. The European Union supported a lot of organizations and people and activists. So, for example, we had really big support from Lithuania and Poland, for sure, and also from other countries of European Union. And everywhere where I meet somebody, they say so they know about the situation of Belarus. They want to support it. I think the support was very active till the time of the full-scale invasion began, Russian full-scale invasion, because it was the red line, and I really think that in our region and probably from the global perspective, it was a very crucial point. And right now we can say about life before this full-scale invasion and after this full-scale invasion, and influence it very bad on the whole region, because not only on Ukraine, and the situation is getting worse in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, in Georgia I think also. So right now, we think that Belarus was occupied in 2020-2021, because we realized that without Russia probably regime will fall, because they didn't know actually what to do with all these protests. They were not ready. And I think it also, if we will want to analyze this situation in this region with also full-scale invasion, we should start analyzing it maybe earlier than 2020, but the whole history in 90s, in the beginning of this century. And the role of Russia right now is getting more dominated, and then it influences negatively on the neighbor countries. So, for example, in Kyrgyzstan situation, I think it's getting worse. There is a big climate and environmental community in Kyrgyzstan, but this year they accepted this foreign agents law, and right now they started more involved in Iran trade. So they opened new minings of Iran, but it's from environmental and climate point of view, for sure, it's the worst thing that could happen in Kyrgyzstan. And also the same situation I think is getting in Kazakhstan. So they also have something like a foreign agent law as I know, and it's also influenced negative on the environmental movement, organization, and something like that. And so right now Russia wants to spread the influence on the countries, on neighbor countries. And what I want to talk, not many people just think about it, but right now when we talk from the climate policy, global climate policy, there is a big polarization in it. And I'm waiting for COP in Azerbaijan, and I think that, for example, Russian and China advocacy of climate change adaptation programs will be stronger than Western advocacy, because they really want to unite southern countries, as called as global south. And so it's also the way they want to influence on NGOs in neighbor countries. So they just want to bring these countries and these NGOs to their big policy of climate change. But for For the climate change, it's crucial because we cannot polarize climate policy. We can do it only united. There were a lot of discussions and Paris Agreement, for example, it was for the whole countries. And when it's getting more polarized, so it looks like a collapse of climate policy. Yeah. And right now, I think from a geopolitical point of view, Russia will try to involve all neighbor countries in this situation. And that's what we see right now, I think, in Georgia. For me, situation in Belarus, in Georgia, it's not really similar because we have different context, but I think the unity of NGOs and activists, and they work also in very creative way, and they really want to demonstrate their position very peaceful, what I think is very important in this situation. And probably the unity of NGOs in our countries, that's what I can find similar. And it's good also, I think, that to demonstrate how big role NGOs play in our countries. For example, in Belarus right now, a lot of nature conservation projects they were stopped because of liquidation of NGOs, and a lot of environmental projects they also were stopped because of liquidation of NGOs. And I don't talk about human rights, for example, projects. And right now it's very important to demonstrate how NGOs are important, especially for post-Soviet countries, because they played a great role from 90s, and they supported a lot of minorities, a lot of people who didn't have the protection in the government, from the government. I think right now it's very important to understand what does it mean when we say that we want to go to Europe. Because Europe, it's not the way how authoritarian countries can find the solutions. For example, I think when we talk about Europe, we talk about more decentralized system, which also means that it will accept values of different countries, different perspectives, and that it will find the solutions and help people to live in this very hard time. Because for me, for example, climate change is the biggest crisis for all human. In the European Union, we see Green Deal, and it's a very ambitious plan how to adopt and mitigate climate change. And I hope that Georgia can also be involved in this policy, in this strategy of adaptation. But to be part of Europe, it also means that we should take responsibility. And right now, in situation when, for example, Russia attacked Ukraine, it also means that we should find the distance, not for Russian society, but for Russian regime. And the Russian regime is based on trade of fossil fuel, and Russian regime is based of repressions against people, and by find this distance, it's very important right now, because we cannot accept all what happened in Ukraine, what happened in Belarus, what happened in all these post-Soviet countries. That right now people should really think how they can find their own way, and so it's like, for me, it's like a part of also decolonization. When I talk about environmental activism, and I realize that it's very good from psychology point of view when you very stressed, when you are really depressed. So when you get more involved in environment and climate activism, for example, you recycle waste, or you just go for a volunteer and go more to nature, it really helps. I think it's also a very good way don't burn out in this situation, because, for example, right now a lot of environmental activists, they think about informational waste, so they're trying to read only focused news, so they don't read all these, they're not involved in doom scrolling, something like that, and they're doing it from environmental point of view, and it's very good for consciousness, it's very good for sustainable psychological position, and I think so. Be more involved in environmental and climate activism. It's very good, and it also can help you just to adapt to these crisis times.